Today, we are diving into the most important battle you'll ever fight. And nope, it's not out there in the world, it's the one happening right between your ears. We're going to build a user's guide for mastering this inner game, pulling together wisdom from some of the sharpest thinkers out there.
So let's just start with a really big question. I want you to think about every single challenge you've ever faced, every goal you're chasing. What if the biggest factor wasn't the obstacle itself, but that little voice in your head narrating the whole thing? That's what we're going to get into.
You know, in any game, rule number one is you've got to know who you're playing against. And in this inner game, the opponent is a master of disguise. It's that piece of us that whispers doubt, that creates drama, and just loves to feed on fear. So let's finally put a name to it.
What's so cool is that all these different brilliant minds, they've all been pointing at the same thing. Ryan Holiday, he calls it the ego. Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body. Don Miguel Ruiz calls it the parasite. They're all describing this internal force that thrives on negativity. So for our guide, let's call it the inner parasite, the true antagonist of your story.
Okay, so every story, whether you're building a company, a career, or just a better life, it always starts with aspiration. But this is Act 1, and it's exactly where that inner parasite loves to set its traps, trying to convince us that the whole point is to look good instead of actually being good.
So how do we start off on the right foot? Well, it really comes down to these 4 things. First, find your purpose, your personal legend, not just a fancy job title. Second, figure out your people. Who's on the bus with you is way more important than where the bus is going. Third, you've got to be a student, always, willing to learn and even take some tough feedback. And finally, you have to embrace silence. That's where the real work gets done, when that noisy ego finally shuts up for a minute.
And this leads us to this critical choice you have to make right at the beginning. Is your goal to do something? To get the award, get the recognition, get the likes? Or is your goal to be something? To actually embody the work, to fall in love with the process, to serve a purpose that's bigger than just you. The parasite screams for us to choose to do, but real mastery, that comes from choosing to be.
All right, so let's say you do it. You navigate Act 1, you start achieving things, you find success. Welcome to Act 2. And believe it or not, this is probably the most dangerous part of the journey. Why? Because nothing feeds that inner parasite, that ego, quite like success. It starts to believe it knows everything.
So what's the antidote here? Well, researcher Jim Collins found it. He identified this specific type of leader who could handle success. He called them Level 5 leaders. And these people are a total paradox. They have this insane ambition, this unstoppable will, but it's all pointed at the mission, at the company, not at themselves. It's this wild mix of deep personal humility and fierce professional drive.
And look, the numbers don't lie. Collins found that companies run by these humble, driven leaders didn't just win, they absolutely crushed their competition. As you can see here, $1 invested with them grew to over $470. The general market? Just 58. It's not even close. Humility isn't just some soft skill. It's a massive strategic weapon.
Now, when you're swimming in success, that inner parasite gets really sneaky. It's got a whole playbook. It starts whispering that you're always right, that you're better than everyone else. It makes you take everything personally and makes you terrified of ever being wrong. It loves to gossip. And all of this leads to what the legendary coach Pat Riley called the disease of me. That moment when I becomes way more important than we. And of course, that brings us to Act 3, the part of every meaningful journey that no one likes to talk about: failure, setbacks, things falling apart. This is the ultimate test. It's a feast for the parasite, which just gorges on blame and resentment. But it's also where our greatest strength is forged. I mean, just think about the story of Katharine Graham. After her husband's tragic death, she's suddenly in charge of the Washington Post with zero experience. She's surrounded by people who think she's going to fail. Then bam, the Pentagon Papers. Bam, Watergate. Bam, a massive crippling strike. Everything that could go wrong did. But by just facing reality, day after day, and pushing through, she didn't just save the paper, she changed American history. So how in the world is that kind of resilience even possible? Well, Eckhart Tolle gives us the key. He calls it surrender. Now hold on, this does not mean giving up. Not at all. It's actually the opposite. It's this deep wisdom of accepting the moment for what it is, instead of wasting all your energy fighting a battle with reality in your head.
So when things get tough, you're at a fork in the road. You really have 2 choices. You can resist reality, which is what the ego always wants to do. That just creates suffering, blame, and it keeps you totally stuck. Or you can practice surrender. You accept the now. It doesn't mean you have to like it, but you stop fighting it. And that is what creates peace, clarity, and ironically, it's the only thing that lets you take real, effective action.
And when you get this, it reframes the entire game. Just like we learn in the book The Alchemist, the treasure wasn't just some gold buried at the end. The real treasure was the person you became along the way, through the good, the bad, and the ugly. The journey itself is the whole point.
Okay, so we've got the problem, this inner parasite. We have the 3 acts of the journey: aspiration, success, and failure. So what's the master key? What's the one tool that helps us navigate all 3 of these acts? Well, it's a state of being we're going to call presence.
Eckhart Tolle describes presence as your consciousness, reclaimed from the nonstop chatter of your mind. It's this intense but peaceful awareness of this exact moment, the now, without judging it. It's not about stopping your thoughts. It's about realizing you are not your thoughts. You're the one watching them.
And this is why it's the ultimate tool. Think about it. In Act 1, aspiration, presence dissolves the ego's need for praise so you can just do the work. In Act 2, success, it keeps you humble and stops that disease of me from taking over. And in Act 3, failure, presence is the act of surrender. It's what allows you to accept the now and find a way forward.
This quote is basically a direct instruction. Die to the past every moment. Just let it go. Because the only place you have any real power is right here in this moment. That's it.
And that leaves us right here, with one final thought. This whole inner battle isn't won tomorrow or next week with some grand plan. It's won right now. So the real question isn't what you're going to do later. It's what is the one tiny thing you can do in this very second to quiet that enemy within. Maybe it's just taking one single deep breath. That's the whole game.